Welcome to Inside North Dakota Politics with Nicholas Kwolek, Josh Meny, and political correspondent Maddie Beer-Temple.
Good Sunday morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maddie Beer-Temple.
I'm Nicholas Kwolek.
And I'm Josh Meny. On today's show, we'll talk about merging two departments when I speak with Representative Robin Weiss of Hertzfield.
We'll also get some perspective on this legislative session and more when Prairie Public's own Dave Thompson joins us.
But we begin with North Dakota's Senate as it dealt a blow to transgender advocates in the state. The upper chamber passed a bill banning trans girls' ability to participate in K-12 public school sports on the team of the gender they identify with. Supporters say the bill protects fairness in girls' sports, while those opposed say it's discriminatory and could bring about costly litigation. The bill also includes an optional study for legislative management to look into the impacts it would have on the state. The bill's gone through a lot of changes since it was first introduced January 11th.
The newly amended bill would limit public K-12 sports to exclusively males or females, while also directing legislative management to consider studying the impacts the change would have on the state.
It's just an incredibly difficult issue, but I have a proposal that I'd like to pass out for consideration.
It's a piece of legislation that has some of the most diametrically opposed lawmakers at odds.
Transgender females are girls. They're not boys, they're girls.
That's not the definition we'll be using when it comes to exclusive sports.
I take offense at that.
The committee's Democratic duo brought up financial concerns of litigation, negative economic impacts with sporting events avoiding the state, and notably discrimination.
And I'm afraid what we're teaching them by this action is that discrimination's okay, intolerance is okay, prejudice is okay, and that some people can be excluded regardless of whether there's any fact base for it.
But the majority Republican lawmakers said those costs were speculative and they shouldn't refrain from passing a good bill in fear of a legal challenge.
To remind the committee that the Attorney General's office has often defended challenges to North Dakota statutes, and that is his job. That is nothing new.
The bill would, however, allow for females to play on a male team.
North Dakota was not alone in considering legislation like this. So far this year, South Dakota, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Tennessee have enacted similar bills. The next stop for this bill is Governor Doug Burgum's desk.
Maddie, thanks. We'll see you in a bit. And moving to the pandemic for a moment, a bill to prevent statewide mask mandates officially passed both the House and Senate. Representatives voted 67-24 to prohibit a statewide elected official, namely the governor, from enacting a mask requirement. The bill initially limited all mandates, but after an amendment, it now allows cities, counties, schools, and businesses to make their own requirements. Lawmakers say the amendment allows for local control while preventing executive overreach, pointing to the state health officer's mask mandate last November.
So this is a great compromise, if there ever was one, and I would hope that we would recognize that we've really come at that halfway point, and this bill now deserves far more than those original 50 votes.
But the bill becomes law only if Governor Burgum signs it. He supported mask usage and did support the health officer's November mandate. If the governor vetoes the bill, lawmakers could override that veto with a 2/3 vote.
North Dakota Senate said no to COVID vaccine passports. The Senate passed a resolution urging Congress to vote against that. In addition to opposing travel limitations, the resolution also opposes any law restricting school or business participation based on vaccine status. The bill never had a committee hearing since it was proposed late in the session, which is why some senators said they opposed it. On the other hand, Senator Mike Wabama says a passport could pose risks to privacy and equal treatment under the law.
I know that there are those who are skeptical of whether resolutions such as this are productive. But to those who are, I pose this question. Should we just shrug our shoulders? Or should we strive, as with this resolution, to make our intentions and recommendations known?
The resolution passed 34-13. The House will get a vote next. New York became the first state to create a digital vaccine passport for state residents in March. Meanwhile, Texas Governor Greg Abbott issued an executive order preventing government agencies from requiring proof of the vaccine. Owners of the Dakota Access Pipeline have asked the full Washington, D.C. Circuit Court to review a panel's decision. Let's bring Maddie back in. Maddie, tell us about that decision.
Nicholas, essentially the panel's decision says the North Dakota project is operating without a key permit. The appeal calls for a rehearing on a ruling by a 3-judge panel affirming U.S. District Judge James Boasberg's opinion that the pipeline is operating without a federal permit, granting easement to cross beneath a reservoir along the Missouri River. Opponents want the pipeline shut down while the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers conducts an extensive environmental review, a decision that will likely fall to Judge Boasberg. The chances of a full review by the D.C. court are unlikely, and lawyers for the pipeline opponents aren't required to file a response unless requested by the court.
Maddie, thanks again.
Some North Dakotans say it's too easy to amend the state constitution with an initiated measure.
Members of Protect North Dakota's Constitution have now taken the first step to make it harder. They submitted a petition for a constitutional measure to the Secretary of State that would change the way constitutional measures are approved in the state.
The measure would increase the percent of votes needed to amend the Constitution from 50% plus 1 to 60%. It would also limit initiated measures to one subject. Those spearheading the effort say it's not in response to any specific measure, but rather the principle that the Constitution should not be so easy to change.
The Constitution facing an initiated measure every election cycle seems like our Constitution is under attack and should face a higher threshold to be approved. And we're not debating the merits of any one particular measure. We believe any measure brought forward, if 60% of North Dakotans agree on it, then it's probably a good idea.
Zarling says he expects the group to gather roughly 35 to 40,000 signatures in order to get the measure on the ballot.
How much control does former President Trump have over the Republican Party? One of North Dakota's senators believes quite a bit. In a recent article, Politico interviewed several Republican senators after learning of insults used by President Trump describing Senator Mitch McConnell at a recent Republican donor event at Mar-a-Lago. The article got the opinions of several senators saying the party would do better if McConnell and President Trump would work together, especially if Trump were re-elected in 2024. Among those quoted, North Dakota Senator Kevin Cramer, who said, quote, "The party cannot be successful without Donald Trump, and Donald Trump cannot be successful without the Republican Party," end quote. I asked him to elaborate, and Senator Cramer says Donald Trump created the modern Republican Party that has been very successful, citing his first election win, the change to an America First globalism, as well as Republicans on the ballot doing better because President Trump was on the ballot. But it works both ways. Senator Cramer says the former president knows just how far he'd get if we were to start a third party.
Donald Trump can't go his own way, create a third party, and be successful without the Republican Party either, and he readily recognizes that. I had a good conversation with him about 2 weeks ago. He called me to talk about some political strategies, and it's very clear that he knows that his role in politics is in the Republican Party.
I also asked Senator Cramer who he would consider the current leader of the party. He says, though not in a formal role, it is President Trump, saying, quote, "Pretty much every Republican senator up for re-election has gone down to Mar-a-Lago and asked for his endorsement, as have those in open seats," end quote.
All right, when Inside North Dakota Politics returns, why one Republican representative believes two is not better than one. I'll speak with Representative Robin Weiss next.
Have you ever wondered why the sky is blue? Or why overnight thunderstorms are so much louder than the ones during the day? You have weather questions and I have answers. Each week I answer some of your questions you have about the weather. It could be as simple as weather terminology or things that make you go, If you have questions about the weather, I have the answers. Watch My Weatherwise Wednesday mornings only on Good Day Dakota.
Sponsored by Roscoe Crane and Rigging.
It's no interest for 5 years at Ike Heating Furniture World. Your bank can't do it. Your credit card won't do it. But Ike Heating Furniture World will. No interest charges in 2022, 2023, 2024, not even in 2025. It's no interest for 5 years. Furnish every room with beautiful new furniture. Buy new flooring. Enjoy your best night's sleep on a new Tempur-Pedic or Sealy mattress. And pay no interest for 5 years. But hurry, it won't last long. No interest for 5 years. For a limited time only at Ike Heating Furniture World.
When it comes to the economic health of our communities, small businesses are a big deal. Steel is a big-time supporter of small businesses with over 10,000 independent steel dealers in cities, towns, and communities all across America. It's about personal service, building relationships, and doing business with people you trust. You can count on your local steel dealer to be there for you in person and online. When you support small businesses, the whole community gets stronger together.
8 years ago, my daughter called to say she was expecting our first grandchild, but I never heard her say it. So a few years ago, Gina bought me a nano hearing aid. And now I love hearing Ryan call me Papa. And at only $297 for a full pair, they make a great gift for someone you know. Plus, call now and order one hearing aid, and Nano will give you a second absolutely free.
Call 1-800-273-7634.
Welcome back to Inside North Dakota Politics on KX.
Representative Robin Weiss of District 14, a Republican representing Herdsfield, North Dakota, joins us now to discuss House Bill 1247 relating to merging the State Department of Health and the Department of Human Services. Representative Weiss, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So what's the importance of merging the Department of Health and the Department of Human Services?
I think there's two main reasons to merge them. One, greater efficiency within the departments, and second would be greater collaboration and coordination between the two, because often the services between Department of Health and Department of Human Services tend to overlap, yet they're separate agencies. There isn't always maybe that conversation that needs to be had between the two. So that's the main two reasons why I introduced the bill to merge the two departments.
Now, what has changed since you introduced the bill?
What has changed?
Yeah.
I guess I'm not clear on that. I mean, since I introduced the bill, I guess to me nothing has really changed. I think there's been a good opportunity this session, frankly, with some of the COVID dollars and those things available, that will make it easier to do the transition, because I think there'll be some federal dollars available to help in that process of transitioning. You know, it did pass the Senate this morning now, so that it is passed, and hopefully the governor will sign the bill.
So how does this make financial sense, fiscal sense?
From the fiscal sense point of view, is I think there's certainly been some overlap where we have departments in both DOH and DHS that are kind of doing somewhat of the same thing. So you certainly would have those greater efficiencies. I think you look at things like human resources, the whole financial end. I mean, there's 2,300 employees in the Department of Human Services, less than 200 in the Department of Health. So in many cases, some of those things can be transitioned over, I'd say, without any additional staffing needed within the Department of Human Services.
Now, what are the major services that these departments offer for North Dakotans?
Well, your Department of Human Services, of course, deals with Medicaid, which is a large thing, long-term care, your nursing home requirements, you know, the whole gamut of social services. Department of Health focuses more on public health. So they deal with things like immunizations, working with the local public health units on, you know, say if there's a tuberculosis outbreak someplace, that's really where the Department of Health. But there is a lot of overlap where, say, Department of Human Services deals with long-term care, but actually the Department of Health license long-term care facilities.
Now, will any of these, you know, that you're mentioning that, will any of these services be streamlined? Will you be able to better serve North Dakotans, say, applying for Medicaid?
Well, the Medicaid probably won't change to any real degree, but I think there will certainly be a lot better service to the client, meaning the citizens of North Dakota, where they only have to go to one place and they'll know where to go, because often there is confusion where people think they'll call the health department for Medicaid. Well, it's in Human Services, but people don't realize there is differences. So I think it'll certainly make for more efficient and better access to services for the people of North Dakota, because they'll make one call and they'll be directed where to go and they'll be able to be taken care of.
Representative Weiss, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you again for having me.
Coming up, Prairie Public News Director Dave Thompson stops by to talk about this year's legislative session.
KX is taking you live coast to coast for the draft, featuring 28 athletes with first-round potential and 32 teams who want them. April 29th at 7, live streamed on KXNet.com. Sponsored by Williston Auto and Premier Limousine. Attention employers, find the help you need with the KXNet Virtual Job Fair, April 27th and 28th. This online hiring event will allow you to connect with local job seekers virtually and get your positions filled fast. Register today on KXNetJobs.com.
At the UND Center for Family Medicine, we believe that your family deserves the best medical care. We have family physicians ready to assist you with everything from routine physicals to same-day visits. Our facilities are ready to serve with on-site labs, x-rays, ultrasounds, and even a pharmacy. Our goal is to take care of your whole family. We specialize in maternity and pediatric care to help your family grow. The UND Center for Family Medicine in Minot. Medical care from our family to yours.
Got concrete that's cracking and settling? Contact Rough Rider Mudjacking to get that driveway, step, garage floor, patio, curb, and more repaired. Mudjacking is cheaper and faster than replacing the concrete by helping stabilize and strengthen the existing slab. Rough Rider Mudjacking has been repairing residential, commercial, and industrial concrete for over 30 years. You can trust us to get the job done. Give us a call today. Rough Rider Mudjacking in Minot or Bismarck.
My life as a Politico is fascinating. I get to follow politics nationally, locally, statewide. My life revolves around journalism, especially political journalism. When I was covering politics in Montana, I happened to meet NPR national political correspondent Don Gagne. Now, this was a big thing for me because I had been listening to Don Gagne when I was 7 years old, strapped in my child seat in my dad's station wagon. I'm Josh Meny, and I'm an anchor for Good Day Dakota.
Welcome back to Inside North Dakota Politics on KX.
Joining us now is a familiar voice and face to North Dakotans, Prairie Public News Director Dave Thompson. Dave, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, Nicholas.
Absolutely. Now, I want to start with what I believe is one of the biggest political/defense headlines, but not exclusive to North Dakota. That headline being President Biden withdrawing all troops from Afghanistan by September 11th, the 20th anniversary of the terrorist attacks. You've covered numerous wars in your illustrious career. Is it now a good time for this to happen, or is it about time?
I'm actually going to say it's about time because we've been hearing promises from various administrations that this was going to happen. Afghanistan is a very tough place to be. Just ask the Russians about that and the problems with them. But yeah, it's probably a very good time to get people home, and we're not entirely abandoning it. We're going to have some troops there, but the vast majority are going to be home, which is, I think, a good thing.
Sure. And obviously no secret that they're doing it on the 20th anniversary, so some meaning behind that withdrawal for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We spoke with you last week in our KX conversation, which is up right now on KXNet.com. Coming back to North Dakota, you had mentioned in that interview some social issues that had become more pointed. Can you give us one example?
I can give you a few, but let me give you the one about the transgender bill, which has really become pointed and is making its way through the session in various iterations now. The way the bill stands, they put in the ban for elementary and secondary students. That's back in, plus a study. Remember, the Senate amended to a study. Now it's back in with both. It's passed one house. We'll see what happens in the other house.
Watching an issue like that for as long as you've covered politics, are you surprised that it's taken this long to get where we are?
In a way, yes, but in a way, no. I mean, I think in the years that I've covered North Dakota politics and the legislature, there have been lots of abortion bills. Almost every session there's an abortion bill. And the hope is that the one contingent in the legislature is hoping that the courts will throw out Roe versus Wade, and then we can go back to, banning abortion except for the life of the mother.
And looking at, you cited the abortion bill, in your experience, has either side of the aisle in either chamber become more receptive over time to one side's viewpoints or another, do you think?
I would say that recently, the last few sessions, the viewpoints have hardened. I don't think there's a lot of common ground at this point.
Does it have to do something with the fact that, we seem to be becoming a more politically correct society, especially over the last couple decades, as far as being more receptive to one another's viewpoints, do you think?
It's possible, but
okay.
You see battle lines being drawn pretty line in the sand on some of these issues.
Because I think I bring that up because what we saw in Texas this last election, no one, I think a lot of people maybe didn't think it was going to be as close as it was. So
Correct,
I think could that, in your opinion, happen like here in North Dakota?
It would take some doing, but it might happen.
Okay.
Pendulums. We talk about pendulums swinging back and forth, and I've seen it swing back and forth. I've seen the year that in 1983 when the Democrats took the House, and back in the late 80s when the Democrats took the Senate. But the Democrats have never had the Senate, House, and governorship in the same year during my tenure covering it.
What do you think has been the biggest change in North Dakota politics that you've seen over your career?
I think that the biggest change I've seen beyond the hardening of positions is just the influence of some of these other groups that I have seen in both parties. That there are some other groups who are kind of factions, and it's a truism in politics that if you get a supermajority, eventually you'll see it splinter. That happened to the Democrats in the late 80s and the early 90s. And that's happening kind of to the Republicans right now. There's a lot of Republicans, though. There's a lot of Republicans in the legislature. And there are some, we call them Bergen Republicans, we call them mainstream Republicans, and we call them the more rightist, or the one wing of the party that seems to be more, shall we say, independent.
And then, of course, we talk about the Bastiat caucus, too.
Caucus.
Right, exactly.
Which is more libertarian.
Sure, right. And do you how much do you think they've penetrated into the political spectrum?
Well, they get a lot of attention because, you've got 20 to 25 people in that caucus, and that's a substantial slice of the pie when it comes to the legislature.
Right. And you think, I know we also talked about the potential of annual legislative sessions, but you still think there is a chance that could happen, but the attitude seems to be, for now, let's stay a citizen legislature.
Pretty much, that's what I'm sensing right now. I've seen annual session bills come up just about every session that I've covered too, and they all say the same thing. And in some respects, the arguments they have probably are right on. Is that we're commodity based, and the world is kind of spinning faster and faster, and commodities go up and down a lot sharper. And so you want an annual session maybe to take care of that. But the overall thing is that the legislature does not want to be painted as professional politicians. They're citizen legislators, and they get elected every 4 years on that.
And final question, do you think, would it be fair to say that this session will be remembered for, above all, the coronavirus?
Oh, I think definitely.
Okay.
Because coronavirus did affect the session itself, but has long-lasting effects in terms of, I think, good ones, because we have more transparency with cameras in the committee rooms, with you able to dial in. You can actually dial in and testify remotely. I think that's going to be a permanent change.
Yeah, more transparency, and it makes our jobs a little bit easier.
Yes,
too.
It does.
Right.
We admit that.
That's right. Dave Thompson, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back with more Inside North Dakota Politics right after this.
Your weather matters, and we've got you covered.
Get a personal forecast you can count on. Just ask.
Hey, Tom! How's the weather?
Record a video with your name and where you're from, and I'll give you a personal forecast on KX News. It's that easy. Just send in your video via Facebook or email and say,
Hey, Tom! How's the weather?
Hey, Tom, how's the weather? Sponsored by Mayer Electric, Technologies and Appliance Repair.
Because of this, we built Escape with Ford Copilot 360. Because of this, We built Ford Edge with intelligent all-wheel drive. Because of this, we built Ford EcoSport to give you traction when and where you need it. And because Ford SUVs are built for this, you made Ford America's best-selling brand. Now, for a limited time, get up to $6,800 total savings on an Edge. Only at your Northland Ford dealers.
If you missed KX Conversation at 6, you missed the discussion on issues that affect us all.
Do you think the district will take another shot at the rec center?
You missed the conversation that leads to solutions.
Trinity changed its policy to once again allow hospital visitors in most cases. What went into that decision?
Scammers are telling a fairly convincing story over the phone these days, so can you walk us through it?
Be part of the conversation. KX Conversation, weeknights on KX News at 6. Welcome back to Inside North Dakota Politics on KX.
By the end of this summer, you could be seeing some longer than usual vehicles hitting the road in North Dakota.
That's right. What was once referred to as the Road Trains Bill continues chugging along, just under a different name.
Senate Bill 2026 would require the Department of Transportation to implement a pilot project putting long combination vehicles on North Dakota roads to study their impact. The bill previously referred to them as road trains, which are essentially long trucks up to 130 feet that exceed current weight and length requirements. Representative Tom Kading says the bill helps address a shortage of commercially licensed drivers and lessens shipping costs when trucks cross the border.
One, the trucks are capable of doing it, and two, we have that shortage. And then finally, the amount of money it takes some of these cargo hauling companies to reconfigure when they hit the border. So a truck comes in from Canada, they have to reconfigure from a Super B combination to a different combination, and this is costing millions of dollars in shipping costs.
If passed, the DOT would report its findings to the legislature by August of 2022 to see if the bill should be implemented. The bill was amended in conference committee and will likely get a vote by both chambers in the next week or so.
Thanks for joining us for Inside North Dakota Politics. See you next week.